This is Dave with Taboo Customs. This video is going to cover our new double shear tire carrier pivot that we've designed to be mounted on top of bumpers so that when you build your tire carrier mount, you can use this as a strong pivot for that system. We're going to cover today why to use a double shear instead of perhaps a single shear kit. We're going to cover what's in the kit, and if you've already purchased one of these kits, we'll go over how to assemble it and things to think about whenever you're designing your bumper to use this double shear mount. So obviously the main benefit of this kit is that it is a double shear kit. So first we'll explain the single shear versus the double shear. Now in our standard kit you get a spindle and a hub and of course all the bearings that go with it. Now whenever you build your tire carrier, you'll mount this spindle down into the bumper and then everything mounts to this spindle. So in this application here, all of the weight is really only held in one point down here, which makes it single shear, because shear would be cutting off the bottom of this spindle. Now if you're building a heavier carrier or something heavier, you're going to run a 37 or 38 inch tire on your tire carrier, you're going to want to think about something a little bit heavier, and that's why we've designed the double shear kit. So in the double shear kit, instead of having a single point where all the weight is being concentrated, all the force is being concentrated, we now have a system where we've got two different smaller spindles that when put together and dropped apparently, put together, they will actually divide that force between the two spindles. So now it's spread out a lot more evenly and you're not just having one point that could possibly, with weight and a lot of bouncing, eventually fail. Alright, so let's cover what you'll get in the kit, and there will be a lot of parts with this kit. You're going to get the main piece, which is the hub. The hub is going to include the tapered roller bearing races installed inside the hub. The hub is a 2.5 inch round hub with a 3/8 wall, and it's about 4 inches tall. It'll include a hole which you'll use to assemble the grease zerk that'll become included in that kit, so you can keep your system maintained. You'll get two tapered roller bearings that are basically 2,000 pound trailer spindle bearings. You'll get the two small spindles for the top and the bottom. You'll get your two seals, one for the top and one for the bottom. And you'll also get a set of shims. Now the set of shims is to allow you to add a little bit more preload, because when you assemble this, there's a chance that you're going to need to make that tighter when you get your final assembly put together. So we've included these shims so that you can tailor your preload on your bearings to what you'd like. You'll get 5 plates that'll make up the body of the assembly, and we'll cover those in a moment whenever we go through the assembly. One thing to point out is we do use some pretty thick material in this, so you'll need to make sure you have a decent welder, because we got a couple of 3/8 plates and then a couple of 3/4 inch plates. After that, you'll basically have your hardware that you'll need to put the assembly together in the end, and some instructions. Alright, to start the assembly, we'll look at the plates, and this is the base plate, and you can tell that because there will be a couple of slots in here, and those are to locate the other pieces. Now this plate can be placed either way. Now when you're going to assemble this, the first couple pieces you're going to want to put in are going to be these two pieces here, and they will kind of snap together there. The main thing you're going to want to make sure is that this plate here is perpendicular to the sides and also 90 degrees straight up and down. Now if everything has gone together well, it's pretty much going to set itself right there, but I would recommend going ahead and checking that to make sure. Then what you should do is place a couple of tacks to hold this in place. The next plate you can put on is going to be this top plate for the holes. Now you'll see this plate is actually set back a little bit from the face here, and that's so you can get a decent weld across here. And this plate you'll want to make sure is pretty much parallel to this bottom plate and perpendicular to the side plate. So if you've got this plate here perpendicular to the bottom, just make sure that it stays perpendicular to our side, and you can tack that in place. Once you have that done, you can go in and go ahead and weld up all of these joints. It's a lot easier to weld before you have your spindles in place. That way you don't have to worry so much about getting any spatter on your spindle areas. Once you have that assembled, you can then take your spindle and put it into place. Now, the critical factor in this spindle is that it needs to be perpendicular to the base. Now, the spindles are machined, so they should pretty well set flat. So make sure whenever you're assembling this step, you don't have, say, a little ball of spatter down in here that might cause it to set, you know, off, kind of like, you know, and obviously not that much, but it's going to set it off a little bit, and you don't want that. You want that to sit as flat and have that surface there as perpendicular as possible. So now we'll talk about some things to think about whenever you're using this in your bumper designs. Now, if you're using a tube style bumper, that will probably be fine. You probably won't have any issues. The main thing you're going to have to worry about when using this is that since you're not going down through the bumper and tying into something down below the surface, you're going to need to make sure that this surface is really stable and really strong in your design. So you're going to want to either have, you know, if you're using a sheet style bumper like this, some sort of ribs down inside or something to make sure that whenever you open the tire carrier, this bumper doesn't actually flex with the weight of that tire carrier. With this, you know, we've got the plates back here that's providing basically a box design, so it's pretty strong. So once you get your bumper designed and built, and your tire carrier assembly designed and built, or whatever device you're going to be using this pivot for, you're going to want to set your shim thickness. So the first thing you'll do is install the bottom bearing onto the assembly, install the hub, and install the top bearing. Now, do not install the seals just yet, because you have to figure out your shims first. What you can do then is you can either start with one shim or start with no shims and go ahead and install the top assembly. You'll then want to take your 3 bolts, install them. You want to use washers, I didn't there, but go ahead and install them, tighten the bolts down as tight as you need to get them. So then what you do is you can take your tire carrier, open your tire carrier, and see how much play you have. Now, when we designed this one, we actually had a little bit of extra play, so it's a little bit farther off than you're probably going to be. But see how much play you have. If you can take and actually move your hub in the assembly without the bumper or assembly flexing, you're going to need to add more shim in here to basically take up all that space. You don't want any kind of movement back and forth of the hub between the hub and the spindle. So if you do have space or do have some movement, add shims, tighten your bolts back down until you determine, you know, what thickness or how many shims you're going to use. And eventually it'll go back in. How many shims you're going to use in your assembly. Once you have your shims determined, so let's say you decide you have 2 shims, now you do have the option, you can use these shims under the top or under the bottom. Normally we put them under the top. If you do have a lot of shims that end up going into this, you might want to split them between the top and the bottom. Once you have your shims determined though, you can go in and install your seals. Now when you install your seals, make sure you grease your seals here to make sure to ensure that they have a long life by giving them a little bit of lubrication starting out. Before doing that, I'd also recommend going in and greasing your bearings as well. So once you grease your bearings, grease your seal, install the seals into the hub, you can go ahead and do the final assembly. And then you should be all set up and ready to go. Thanks for watching. If you watched this and you're interested in purchasing one of our tire carrier pivots here, visit taboocustoms.com or contact us on our website or on Facebook. Thanks for watching.